From a blend raw file to a gallery-ready image, I'll take you through the full edit start to finish, and at the end, I'll show you the fine art print so you can see how this edit holds up on paper. We're starting in Camera Raw. My first move is to switch our profile to Adobe Landscape. It gives the colors an immediate punchy starting point. The overall frame is a bit underexposed, so I lift the exposure by half a stop. I'm also going to be aggressive with the highlights and whites, pulling them both down significantly. I want absolute control over those bright tones before we even hit Photoshop. To reveal the details in the shadows, I'll open up the shadows and lift the blacks just enough to stop any clipping in the deepest darks. Now let's look at the color. The original shot feels a bit too yellow, so I'll cool down the temperature to get a more natural balance. Next, we'll move into the color mixer to handle the foliage. I'm shifting the greens toward a warmer yellow hue, and I'll do the same for the oranges, pushing them into a deeper, more autumnal tone. We now have a much better color separation. For sharpening, I'm going to set this to 70, lower the radius, raise the details, and use a heavy masking value around 80. This ensures we're crisping up the edges of the rocks, the trees, without adding digital noise to the softer areas. I'll also enable Remove Chromatic Aberration to keep our edges clean. Finally, I'm cropping to a 5:7 ratio. That lets me frame the trees cleanly on both sides and lock in the composition I want for the final print. Before and after our base is set, let's head into Photoshop. In Photoshop, our goal is to shift the viewer's focus directly to the center of the frame. I'll start with the vignette by drawing a selection with the elliptical tool and then selecting Freehand Vignette from the TK9 CX panel. Before and after, this tree trunk on the left became a bit too dark, and since the light is falling from the canopy, I'll use a black brush to paint the effect away from the top of the image and the trunk. We want the vignette to feel like natural shadow, not a filter. Now let's add some warmth to the heart of the image. Using the TK9 multi-mask, I'll create a color grading layer, lift the midtones, and color grade towards yellow. To keep this localized, I'll apply a black mask and manually draw a selection around the center. A heavy feather of around 300 pixels before and after. Now this warmth feels completely seamless. To make the moss on the rocks brighter, I'll create a color mask for the greens, adjust the mask brightness, apply it to a curves layer, and move that mask to a dodge layer. This lets me paint with a light green brush. I'll also paint the edges of these leaves to give them a bit more light. Before and after, I'll drop the opacity to 60%. I want it to look like a sunsplash, not neon. Next, I'll create a fresh dodge layer with a very low opacity white brush to gently lift the foreground rocks, some areas in the background, and the trees. And to add some depth to the rock texture, I'll create a burn layer. Before and after, dodging and burning are two of the most important tools a photographer can use in the digital room. One distraction I see, it's this foreground road. It's pulling the eye away from the center of the frame. I'll use a burn layer to darken it down. Before and after, it added too much saturation to the grass, so I'll use a color mask to select the grass, brighten the mask a bit, and paint everything else black. I'll apply that to a hue saturation layer and desaturate the grass in that area by 70%. Before and after, now the eye stays where I want it. in the center. To give the scene its final dreamy atmosphere, I'll merge everything into a smart object for an Orton effect. I'll go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur. Next, I'll open the Camera Raw filter and boost the exposure, the temperature, and vibrance. I'll lower the layer opacity to 12%, and since shadows don't glow, I'll use Blend-If to pull that glow out of the deepest dark so the image doesn't look artificial. Before and after, it's subtle but on point. Now, I need to prepare this for the physical print. Prints usually come out darker and with less contrast than what we see on the screen. I'll add a curves adjustment layer with a gentle S-curve to lift the midtones and add a bit of contrast so it holds up well on paper. Before and after, it's perfect. We started here and we ended here. We've switched the whole focus of the image toward the center and given the scene a much stronger mood. And now for my favorite part, giving this photo life by printing it. This is the ultimate goal. All those steps, the masking, the color grading, the careful sharpening, they all lead to this moment. When you see your work printed at this quality, it changes your perspective. You start to edit with more intention. You start to see light differently. I hope this workflow helps you take your images off the screen and into the real world. If you enjoyed this journey from raw to print, please hit the like button, subscribe for more tutorials like this, and leave a comment to let me know what you think. It really helps the channel grow. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.